Uhlmann reporting for TTN-HD, Production Live, here with Kenny Golde. What inspired you to get into the business?
Well, let's see, I started off as a writer. I was a writer even when I was a kid. I was the kid in, like second grade when you'd get the assignment to write for 5 minutes during class and turn it in at the end of the day, that I would take it home for the weekend and come back with 20 pages and read it to the class.
Aww.
So I always wanted to be a writer. I intended to be a novelist, and then growing up in Los Angeles, obviously came across the film industry. And it wasn't until I was in college that I started to see some screenplays and kind of figured out that maybe I'm not quite ready to just be a bartender and a novelist, that I could get a job in the entertainment business while writing. So it was just basic storytelling that got me in to begin with. And then I got into producing first. So I started off with short films when I got out of college, and then moved into producing features in the middle of the late 90s. And then after a few years, I thought, if I'm going to really make a career out of this business, if I'm going to be in for the long haul, I want to explore every aspect of the business. So I decided to check out directing as well. And that really kind of turned my career quite a bit. I wrote and directed a half-hour short film called Food for Thought that wound up selling to HBO. So it was my first, piece of my own that really made it out there. And that's how I got started. I can keep going, but...
No, that's great. What's your favorite part out of all these different things that you've tried? Do you have a preference as to whether you're writing or producing or directing?
Well, it's between the writing and directing. Producing, to me, not to diminish the job at all, I've been really fortunate lately to work with some really amazing producers who do that job perfectly. To me, personally, it's a means to an end. Producing is the opportunity to go direct my films, but it's funny how the writing and directing jobs can be separate, so I wrote and directed several independent features. I wrote a movie called The Job that starred Daryl Hannah that was released by Lionsgate Films, and directed that. And then a few years later, I did not write, but directed and produced a movie called Uncross the Stars with Barbara Hershey and Ron Perlman. And the writing kind of took off, and I'm fortunate now that the writing has moved into the studio level, and I'm getting to work with great producers like Walter Parks and Bob Orsi on really big projects. And then the directing, I'm still looking at making my next indie film, because the directing needs to break out separately from the writing. Some people are fortunate enough to do it on one movie, but for me, they're kind of going different routes. But it's neat because I don't need to look at $100 million movie as my next film to direct. I can write those and then still go direct a $5 million movie, and it gives me the opportunity to work in two arenas and focus my skills. But the writing and directing kind of bounce, and I love them both. I don't think I could ever give either of them up.
And you've also written a book, Do-It-Yourself Bailout. What inspired the writing of your book?
Wow, that's quite a story. In 2007, when I was making Uncross the Stars, my investor, a really lovely man named Larry Gabriel, sadly passed away while we were shooting. And that kind of shut down the flow of the financing for the film. So I was faced with a choice. We were literally 4 weeks into the shoot, and it was either shut down and go look for more financing and then try and get the cast and the crew and the locations and everybody back together, who knows when, to finish the film, or finance the completion of the film on my credit cards and business lines of credit in order to finish it. And that's the choice I made, and it seemed like the right choice at the time. I'd made 7 independent films before that, and they'd all sold and made their money back and paid off their debts, so it didn't seem risky at all. But then it just happened to be really bad timing. We finished that film in late '07, like right when the subprime bubble was bursting, and we were selling it in the spring of '08, right when Lehman Brothers was crashing, and I think one film sold at the Cannes Film Market that year, and by the end of '08, the TARP bailout was happening, and it's just the worst economy we'd ever seen, and nobody was buying movies. So
So you had to bail yourself out?
Well, yeah. So I pretty much I was carrying about $250,000 on credit cards, paying more in interest than I was paying in all my other expenses. I mean, I was just sliding quickly towards destitution. So I did the route of debt settlement, calling up my credit card companies and negotiating settlements on the debts rather than filing bankruptcy, and learned pretty much everything there is to know about how to call your bank and settle your credit card debt. And really, even more than the nuts and bolts of debt settlement, it was an emotional journey around finance and how to let go of the shame and fear and anger and pain and guilt that we burden ourselves with financial difficulties and financial insecurities. And the Do-It-Yourself Bailout became a how-to guide for people to bail themselves out of credit card debt instead of filing bankruptcy, but really also an experience for people to go through to learn how to emotionally empower themselves while going through financial difficulties, which is something that so many people are doing right now. So that's kind of just started as my memoir of a journey that I self-published in 2009 and did well enough that it actually just got picked up. It's being published by a company called Barricade Books this fall. So
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell me a little bit more about the emotional journey. What if you could give anyone one piece of advice to work through it on an emotional level, what would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, debt and all financial difficulties are difficulties of circumstance, whether by chance, fate, or choice. Sometimes we make choices that don't go the right way. We wind up in financial difficulties. And financial difficulties, especially burdensome credit card debt, bring, like I said before, a lot of shame, a lot of pain, a lot of fear of the future, difficulty to talk to spouses and coworkers and family about. We tend to get isolated. And a lot of people tend to feel that if they can settle out, if they can eliminate their credit card debt, if they can make more money, if they don't have their financial strains, that they will then be able to let go of the pain and fear and debt. That it's like the money part has to be settled first before the emotional suffering can go. And the biggest thing that I teach in the book and in the seminars is that you have the power to let go of that emotional suffering on your own first. And once you do, just say, you know what, this debt doesn't say anything about me. The fact that I'm in credit card debt doesn't make me a bad person. The thing that I really teach in the seminars and in the book is that you have the power to let go of that emotional suffering first. And that if you choose to say that this debt doesn't say anything bad about me, that the fact that I'm having financial difficulties doesn't make me a bad person, if you choose to let go of the pain and the fear and the suffering, it puts you in a better position to go deal with your finances. So you can actually strengthen your position to settle your debt or any other thing you need to do by saying, I'm just not going to let it cause me suffering, instead of waiting for it to resolve in order for you to feel better about yourself.
Back to film again. What are your goals for the future?
Oh, too many to enumerate. I have several studio level movies that are written and set up and financed right now and out to various stages of directors and casting, and I'm very enthusiastic that some really neat films are going to get made this year and early next year, which will just be wonderful. One of them's a adaptation of an Isaac Asimov novel, who was one of my heroes when I was young. So to get to see an Isaac Asimov movie on screen that I wrote, that's just going to be fantastic. And then that's also leading to all sorts of new and exciting storylines on the writing side. Directing, I have my next film that I want to direct, and then for me, aspirations go even further. You know, yes, I want to continue writing and directing features, both independent and studio, and really enjoy a career and a life in filmmaking and storytelling. But I also love to travel. I want to live in Paris for a year. I'm intending to get married next year and start a family and have a really different journey through the second half of life than I've had in the first, and do it all with a smile.
And what advice would you give to an aspiring filmmaker?
Just never quit. Just never. Be absolutely certain that this is what you want to do, and it's okay to come check it out for a little while. You know, I know a lot of people who come spend a couple years in the business and think it's not for them, but they don't go find something that they do love. Know that you want to love this business, because it is tough. I love the challenge, but if you don't love the challenge, you can go be challenged as a banker or a artist or a real estate salesperson or a school teacher or a college professor or a politician. You can be challenged in a lot of arenas. Choose the one that you know you're going to love, and then for this one, stick with it, because with rare exceptions, success doesn't come quickly. But if you're attached to the success and not the time frame of the success, you will succeed.
Great. And where's the best place to find out more information on you online?
KennyGolde.com has information on my background and my books, but if you're really looking at the do-it-yourself bailout, the website's settleyourcreditcards.com with a plural, settleyourcreditcards.com. That's the do-it-yourself bailout, and just stay tuned for more.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kenny, and best of luck with all of your upcoming projects.
Oh, it was a pleasure, and best of luck with your interviews.
Thank you. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for TTN-HD Production Live.